watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Hello, and welcome to this week's edition of GHS-TV's award-winning talk show, Crosstalk. I'm your host, Ternyce Anderson. Each week in this time slot, we take a look at different issues, personalities, and events that affect you and our community. The armed forces play a key role in serving our country and protecting us from other international powers. Because of their international work, sometimes we forget the local work that happens in our own backyard. On today's show, we will explore their national missions and learn how they support and give back to the surrounding community. First up is the Army National Guard, and joining me is Staff Sergeant Tammy Hazelrig, a career counselor and recruiter. Sergeant Hazelrig, thank you so much for doing this interview with me today.
No problem. I'm excited to do it.
I was really surprised by how long the National Guard has been around. Can you give our viewers a brief history?
Yes, so the National Guard is actually the oldest military component in the United States. We initially started back in 1636 as the original militia, back when the colonies were being formed, and we had to protect, the villages from people trying to take the villages over. So it's really just civilians that have come together to, protect our communities.
Your mission is twofold: to serve the community and the country. I want to talk about both of them. First, how does the National Guard support the community?
So the National Guard, you're right, it is twofold. The National Guard supports the community by local state missions that we have. So any natural disasters that occur, we assist with those. We help our community members recover from those things. We also help with any civil disturbances that occur, but also local giving campaigns. We do food drives. We help with local families who have service members who have maybe passed away that have children. We help with them with Christmases and things of that nature.
Governor Lee is able to call on the Tennessee National Armed Guard. In what scenarios would he be able to call on them?
So he can call on us whenever there is a need within the state. So like I said, with the natural disasters, or if there's any civil disturbances or things of that nature. But he can also call on us to assist with other states as well. So if there is a natural disaster in another state, or say Border Patrol in another state needs some assistance, we're able to go and help those states as well.
What notice would members of the National Guard get if he calls on them?
So usually for natural disasters, it's fairly short notice time. It's usually anywhere from a few days to a couple of weeks notice time, because, natural disasters, can't really be planned. So when they occur, we have to be ready to respond to those as they happen.
What kind of state-based missions have you been called on?
So actually, closer to when I first joined the National Guard, when Hurricane Katrina hit, my unit was activated to go down to Gulfport, Mississippi to assist with that. And also Border Patrol in Yuma, Arizona. Sorry, it was a long time ago. I had to remember. My unit was called to help Arizona with that mission as well. I have not had the honor of assisting with any natural disasters here in Tennessee, because honestly, we don't really have that many on this side of the state, and I've been on this side of the state my entire career. But there have recently been the civil disturbances a couple of years ago downtown that the National Guard was called to assist with, but I was recruiting at that point, so I didn't get to assist with that.
In what scenarios would the president be able to call on the National Guard all around the United States?
So that is our second fold part of the mission. That would be federal missions. And because the National Guard has the same training that the active duty has, we're able to spin up and assist them with any missions they may need to be assisted with. So say there's a couple scenarios. Say I'll use military police as an example because I was military police. Say the military police on a military base is activated to go deploy overseas, and they need some military police to fill in on that base to cover the need on that military base. Well, National Guard can activate and go deploy, that's still considered deployment, deploy to that base and assist with the needs on that military base. The National Guard can also deploy overseas. So if there's a need to rotate us through missions overseas, we're able to do that as well. And those are federal missions that the president's request the governors, basically loan us out to help with that.
Do you have to serve in the U.S. Army in order to serve for the National Guard?
So it's actually one and the same. I'm a part of the Army National Guard, so that is a part of the Army. So the Army is a branch in the military, and the National Guard is a component within that branch. So with me being in the Army National Guard, I am a part of the Army. I'm just the part-time force of the Army.
Who are National Guard members?
So National Guard members are your neighbors, your family. Anyone can be in the National Guard as long as you are 17 or older and a citizen or green card holder and meet the basic qualifications. So you could be sitting across from a National Guard member and not know it because we are members of the community. So you have some teachers, you have an assistant principal actually at Germantown High School that's actually in the National Guard as well.
What are the requirements?
So the requirement to be in the National Guard, you must be at least 17 years of age. You have to be on track to graduate or have a high school diploma. You have to meet the height and weight requirements. So there are, physical requirements as well. And some health conditions you are not able to join with depending on what those are. So you must, be a healthy individual as well.
I've heard something about the Asvab test. How does this prepare recruiters for the National Guard?
I'm glad you asked about that because that's a requirement as well. So the Asvab is like an aptitude test you have to take to join any kind of military branch or component. It is similar to the ACT. It's a little bit easier version of the ACT is what I usually tell people. But it is a requirement to join the military in general. Recruiters use it to assess people's ability to do jobs within the military. So usually if I have somebody that's interested in joining the National Guard, I will help them study for the Asvab and set them up to take the Asvab, and then that shows me what jobs they qualify for.
What forming of training is involved?
So training for the National Guard is the same as training for the active duty Army. We go to the same training. So it's 10 weeks of basic training. And then once you complete basic training, you go to your job training for the National Guard. And the length of that just depends on what kind of job you pick, because we have all kinds of jobs in the National Guard. It can be anywhere from 4 weeks of job training to up to 56 weeks of job training, just depending on what job you pick.
Well, Sergeant Hazel Rigg, thank you so much for doing this interview with me, and thank you for your service.
Thank you. I'm honored to do it.
If you're looking for more information on the Army National Guard, you can visit nationalguard.com. Stick around. We'll head north to Milton and learn about the Naval Support Activity Base when we come back.
We see the potential in every single student.
That sounds like a confession to me.
I love watching these kids as they start as freshmen in high school and watching them mature and grow.
At last, my right arm is complete again!
The theater program at GHS, it's something special.
Is very intensive, it's very interactive.
When a student starts here their freshman year, they start with Introduction to Theater. And after that year, they have a choice to either go into acting or technical theater. And then after that, they join our production workshop class. It's the class that is completely run by students.
The students do mostly everything. We build the sets, we do lighting, we make the costumes, we do the show.
We've got magic, we've got power.
It's very fun. I mean, everybody's very supportive of each other.
Now we're all in this together.
It's taught me so much about how to act and how to have a stage presence.
Not only are we teaching the students the skills that they need to be a great performer or a great stage manager or a wonderful lighting designer, we're teaching them skills that they're going to be able to apply to whatever they do in their life.
God bless us, everyone.
This department not only makes wonderful theater, but more importantly, this department makes wonderful people.
I won. I'm good. Get used to it.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back. With more than 7,500 military, civilian, and contract personnel on base, Naval Support Activity Mid-South is one of the largest employees in Tennessee. The militant base is more than 100 years old, which means it has a lot of stories to tell. Here now is Amanda Marino, Public Affairs Officer for NSA Mid-South. Ms. Marino, thank you so much for doing this interview with me.
Thank you for having me here today.
The Navy base has played a major part in the U.S. warfare, dating all the way back to World War I. What was it originally commissioned for?
Yes, so in 1917, the U.S. Army Signal Corps created Park Field, which was a training camp for pilots. Military aviation was in its infancy at that time. So it was a brand new weapon that we had against enemies, and the land here in Millington, Tennessee was new pilots, military mission in World War I.
What else has it been used for?
So after World War I ended, the land here in Millington, Tennessee was decommissioned as a military base, and then throughout the years in between World War I and World War II, it was used for a variety of reasons. It was used as a transient camp during the Great Depression, so that individuals and families who had lost their farm were able to come here and work and have a basic standard of living in coordination with the federal government. And then that kind of developed into the land being used as a model farm, where the local government and the federal government, along with farmers in the local area, worked in a cooperative environment to create best practices for farming land. And a lot of those best practices that were created during that time are actually still used in the farmland surrounding the installation today.
Well, Ms. Marino.
And then, I was just going to continue. And then, of course, December 7th, 1942, a day that will live in infamy, that was the attacks on Pearl Harbor. And with the attacks on Pearl Harbor, we kind of reassessed as a Navy where our fleet, where our training environments needed to be. And at that time, the then Secretary of the Navy, Frank Knox, decided that perhaps we shouldn't have all of our naval aviation training at the shoreline. When you're doing your basic training for naval aviation, you don't necessarily need to be near the water. And so the federal government already owned the land here in Millington, Tennessee, and decided to create a naval air station here in Millington, Tennessee, landlocked, miles away from the nearest major body of water. And so the land here was used as a naval air station pretty much continuously for 50 years until the base realignment and closure decisions of 93 and 95 decided that technology had improved. We now were more safe from attack from sea, and it made more sense to move the naval aviation training to the coastline in Pensacola, Florida. And at that time, the mission of the base turned to one of an administrative nature. We got Naval Personnel Command, the Bureau of Naval Personnel, and Navy Recruiting Command moved to Millington, Tennessee from the Washington, D.C. area, and have been here for about 25 years now.
Ms. Marino, can you explain its purpose now?
So this is the hub of all human resources for the Navy. So over 300,000 sailors, their entire career from recruitment to retirement is managed right here in Millington, Tennessee. We make sure that the right sailor is at the right command at the right time with the right training, with everything that they need to be able to make sure that the missions around the world are happening without a problem. And so here we have what we call detailers. They assign sailors to what ship they're going to go to. We have career and community managers who decide what an individual sailor's career should look like, how they should progress, how they should develop as a sailor throughout their career. We also have community managers who determine how many sailors does an aircraft carrier need versus a smaller ship, or how many sailors does this command need versus that command, and what rank do they need to be, what skill sets do they need to have. So all of that management of sailors and sailor, the value that sailors bring to the table as the Navy's most important weapons system is determined right here in Millington, Tennessee, and managed and analyzed right here in Millington, Tennessee. So we really do, we touch the career of every single sailor in the Navy every single day, 24/7, 365 days a year. We have personnel working at this installation to make sure that our sailors out at sea are getting the job done.
Is everyone that works there currently or formerly a part of the Navy, or are there civilians there as well?
So the breakdown of our installation is about 50% military uniform members and about 50% civilian. And of that civilian, there are what are federal employees and then some contractors as well. Most of the federal employees are prior service, and so they have served in some branch of the military before, but some have not. There are plenty of civilians who work on this base and have worked for the Navy or for other branches of the service, because we do have we have several branches of the military here on board the base. So we do have civilians who've never served in uniform, but have served the military in the civilian capacity for decades even.
As the base evolved and changed, so has its effect on the community. Can you talk about this?
Yes, so I think what you're alluding to is the change in our demographics from when we were a training command to now when we're a headquarters, a national headquarters flag level home port, essentially. So during the years of the installation being a naval air station, we would have approximately 30,000 junior sailors a year who would come through for training for a few weeks to a few months at a time, constantly revolving through the installation, training up in their basic rate, which is what we call our jobs in the Navy, and then going out to the fleet to actually do that job. And as I mentioned before, that happened for 50 years where we had that steady stream of junior sailors coming through. Now we have a lot less sailors and civilians that work on the base, but they're not junior. We're a very senior base. We have 4 admirals on board the installation that work on board the installation at our tenant command. We have a lot more senior personnel, both in uniform and as civilians. So the impact to the local area was just a change in what the relationship was. When we had junior sailors here, they didn't necessarily have a lot of families. They didn't have children of their own yet. And so their needs were much different than the service members and employees, the personnel that we have now that are more senior in their career. They're a little bit older. They do have families. They have families sometimes with kids that are even in middle school, high school, even college. And so what they're looking for in their relationship with the community is a lot different than what a junior sailor would look for in their relationship with the community.
Well, Ms. Morneau, this was a very interesting conversation. Thank you for being on the show and for your service.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. You have a good day.
You as well. To learn more about Naval Support Activity Mid-South, visit cnic.navy.mil. After the break, the role the Army Corps of Engineers play when disaster strikes.
Art is really an expression of the self. If you look at a piece of art, you can see the artist within it.
All just really depends on what I feel like doing at the time. I generally have different ideas every day.
I really get excited when my students come up to me with unique ideas that I've not heard of.
You can't let everybody tell you who you are or what your art is or how to be what you want to be.
I really let the students go according to how they're progressing, and I try to give them as much as they're able to handle.
Well, I like drawing a lot, and I like painting, and I like being able to improve my skill and show people my art.
I try to get them to think creatively. I think that's one of the few things that we as teachers really need to try to push with our students.
I can't sing. I can't act either, but I can do art. So that's why I chose art.
For more information about the Kappa program, visit ghskappa.com or call 755-7775. You're watching the award-winning GHS-TV, a nationally recognized student television station.
Welcome back to Crosstalk. I'm Ternyce Anderson. When natural disasters strike, some of the first boots on the ground are from the Army Corps of Engineers. Here to go more in depth on their mission is Memphis District Commander Colonel Zachary Miller. Colonel Miller, thank you so much for doing this interview.
Thanks for having me.
The Corps of Engineers can trace its history all the way back to the founding of America. What was its original purpose?
Well, originally the Corps of Engineers was started at the same time as our Continental Army to help build fortifications both on the coast and inside the United States as we were fighting the Revolutionary War.
Today, the Corps has 3 primary areas. Can you talk about them?
Sure. That initial mission of defensive works for war is still done by the part of the Army, the Corps of Engineers that's in the Army. But the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers that's doing the Civil Works mission has now expanded into doing civil works, which includes flood risk management, flood control, navigation on our navigable inland waterways, of which there's almost 12,000 miles in the United States, and also environmental stewardship. So those are the 3 big ones. And then you also mentioned response to natural disasters, which is another mission that the Corps does, primarily in support of FEMA.
Who are the Corps of Engineers? Are they military, former or current military? Are they civilians?
So the Corps of Engineers is led by military members such as myself, but we are far and away the minority of the folks that are actually part of the Corps. There's 37,000 Department of the Army civilians, so federal government employees that are civilian employees, but they work for the Army that conduct all of those missions for the Corps of Engineers.
What are some core noble activities that you all have done?
Well, as you mentioned, the history of the Corps of Engineers goes all the way back to the founding of our nation. There are countless enormous projects, big things that the Corps of Engineers has done, everything from digging the Panama Canal to building Cape Canaveral, where we launched the space shuttles from. But really the thing that touches everybody every single day, whether they know it or not, is our work on the flood control and navigation on our rivers. An enormous part of the economy of the United States relies on the Mississippi River here in the West Tennessee area and many other rivers to move barge traffic. And so we're responsible for maintaining the navigable channel, making sure that the levees stay where they are to help provide protection for all of the land, whether that be a city or agricultural land behind those levees, so that we can prosper as an economy and as a nation.
When natural disaster strikes, you all are the first ones to help out. Can you talk about this process?
Sure. When there's been a federal disaster declaration made by the president, FEMA, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, is the lead for the entire government, and they have a whole host of capabilities that are provided by other federal agencies, and the Corps of Engineers is a big one. And so I've personally been involved in hurricane response the last 2 years down in Louisiana when Hurricane Laura last year and then Hurricane Ida this year struck the coast. And those are the 2 strongest hurricanes. They were the same strength ever to hit coastal Louisiana, even stronger than Hurricane Katrina, which of course everybody knows. And the Corps of Engineers, as you said, first responders, we provide a bunch of capabilities. One of the ones that is most noticed by people are the blue roofs. The winds from hurricanes they take the roofs off of homes. And so in order to prevent those homes from getting even more damage to them, we'll install roofs. This last year, we did almost 40,000 roofs. The Corps of Engineers also uses all of its technical expertise to do assessments of critical public infrastructure, think wastewater, drinking water, electrical grids, and provide feedback to the communities that are affected. We provide temporary emergency power to things like hospitals and water plants. And then we also support FEMA in providing temporary housing to those who have completely lost their homes. So those are just a few of the missions that we do there.
You mentioned that you helped out with the hurricanes. What is something that people need the most when these natural disasters happen?
Well, for those who are still in the affected area, in other words, they weren't able to evacuate, the first thing you always hear about is power. And when we think about power, we're not really necessarily talking about to your home, even though everybody would love to have their refrigerator still running. We're talking about power to hospitals, to fire stations, to the places that remove the sewage from the streets and from our homes and provide clean drinking water. And so we will bring in really, really large generators that have the capacity to do that. But shortly after the power comes back on and it's restored by the power companies, people start thinking about where they're going to live. And so if their home is still habitable, putting a roof on it is really important. If it's not, getting them into some kind of temporary housing arrangement is very important, because you can't start to put your life back together, if you're sleeping in your car or if you're at a hotel, many states away.
Colonel Miller, can you talk about the impact you all have made across the country?
Well, sure. The Corps of Engineers in general is everywhere, and they are doing an immense amount. I mentioned a lot of the missions, but they're also providing electricity in the form of hydropower. They are removing water from areas from rain or from flooding rivers. We're also, as mentioned before, doing environmental restoration. We have two really big and important environmental restoration projects right here in the western part of Tennessee, one coming out of Running Reelfoot Lake and Running Reelfoot Bayou, and one right here on the Mississippi River, where we're restoring ecosystem and natural habitat for migratory birds and all kinds of other things that are found in the river. So the Corps of Engineers has a large part to play everywhere, with also maintaining a safe and an environment that's conducive to having all the different types of species of plants and animals.
Colonel Miller, thank you so much for doing this interview with me. It was an honor.
Well, thank you very much for having me. Appreciate it.
Thank you for your service as well. If you would like to look more into the Memphis District U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, visit their website at usac.army.mil. Once again, thank you to all the guests for their insight on today's topic. For more information on our programming, please check us out on the web at GHS-TV.org, where we are streaming live 24 hours a day. You can also check us out on Facebook and Twitter. I'm Ternyce Anderson. From all of us here at GHS-TV, thank you for watching Crosstalk, and I hope to see you again.